Thank you for coming this evening. I'm Bobby. I'm from Alternative Vibes, and I'm partnered here today with Illinois Women in Cannabis. I know some of you are very familiar with cannabis, some of you not so much. So I'd like to ask if you have any questions, please save it for the end. In the event I'm not able to answer your question, hopefully one of my associates, if you guys would like to raise your hands. I know you have more of them here. Come on. They will be able to answer your question, or worst case, if you include your email in the sign-in sheet, then I can get back to you at a later point, if not. So I'm curious, out of everybody in here, have you guys ever been, with a show of hands, in a situation where you've been able to, or have you ever been in a situation where you've been too scared to let a family member or a friend know that you've used cannabis as medicine? Wow, we had a lot of brave people in here. I was expecting a lot more people to be scared of that. I should probably explain why cannabis is actually a big deal for me. Growing up, I was what most considered a straight edge. In case you're not familiar, that's one that does not indulge on any substance whatsoever. Even getting me to take an Advil when I had a headache was a struggle. Dare could not have been any happier with the results. That is until I turned 21. And I know what you're thinking, but I didn't have a standard 21-year-old birthday like everybody else. Instead, I actually stumbled across a documentary called The Union, The Business Behind Getting High, directed by Brett Harvey. I knew then that everything I knew about cannabis and the endocannabinoid system was wrong. So shortly after, I experimented and I purchased a vaporizer. Instantly, I felt relief I didn't think was possible. So eventually, my curiosity continued to grow until I landed in Washington, growing my own and studying under a microscope. That was probably what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life until I found out Illinois finally got their medical program, which I didn't think I would see the light of day for that. So I migrated back here and I actually found a job at a Chicago dispensary. That was great. Could help a lot of people, but again, I was limited to Chicago. So now I want to broaden my horizon and become a medical advocate so I can help destroy the stigma towards this and help educate the world. So what is cannabis? First, it's non-toxic. No matter how much you take, it's impossible to overdose. Or as Joe Rogan would say, if you get hit by it flying out of a plane, 20 pounds of it, that could kill you, but ingesting it, purely impossible, and I challenge anyone to try. It's an anti-inflammatory, which is important to know because a lot of medicine we use nowadays is used as an anti-inflammatory. It's a neuroprotectant, so it protects what's actually inside your brain at a molecular level, which is very important. It treats chronic pain, which is very, very, I mean, how many opiates now do you know that people are using to actually, and last but not least, it's customizable. Not everybody's got the same endocannabinoid system, so everybody's results vary. Cannabis has been used for medicine over a millennia, but it's only been illegal for the last 80 years. It's before Prohibition, it was used for pretty much everything. I mean, you have cramps, cannabis. Headache, cannabis. Bad mood, cannabis. Diarrhea, cannabis. What wasn't used for cannabis back in the day? Hopefully it'll be like that again. But there are some concerns. I mean, some are worried about its impairment. You know, are we going to have fatalities on the highway? Some are also worried about the safety. Is it safe to ingest? And then the research behind it. You know, they don't know if someone's just claiming it, as well as if it's have any addictive properties. The dosage also is not clear because, let's face it, not everybody knows, you know, what to smoke or, you know, if they have any other methods of doing it. And then, most importantly, the legality. Are you going to get locked up for trying to save your own life? So first, we'll start with, is cannabis safe? So I know you guys heard me say there's never one overdose, versus if you look at the opiates, there's over 52,000 deaths, let alone in 2015. 33,000 of those were from opiates, Vicodin, hydrocodone, Oxycontin, etc. In states that medical cannabis is legal, we saw a 25% reduction rate. That's a big deal. That's a lot of saved lives. We're now finding that cannabis is an exit drug, not a gateway drug. It's a big deal because 10 years ago, if we were having this presentation, I'd probably be arguing with you saying that it's a gateway drug, not an exit drug. Is cannabis addictive? Some like to compare it to coffee. But honestly, I feel like coffee is actually a step up from cannabis. So if you're worried about coffee, maybe cannabis isn't right for you. But again, if you look at compared to a pharmaceutical, I think it's a little bit of a difference. Patients actually prefer cannabis because it has positive side effects, unlike pharmaceuticals where you have to take a pill to withstand another pill. It also has positive in the fact that, hey, you can get better sleep, it's mood enhancing, and we all know about the munchies. Will cannabis make patients impaired? So now there's actually strains out there that are formulated to have a higher CBD or cannabinoid or cannabidiol ratio than THC or tetrahydrocannabinol. THC is the only active component or psychoactive component in cannabis. It's important to know this because people can actually take hemp or strains that are CBD high, take that prior if they need it, and then if they are still in need, they can take THC after. And depending on how they use it, they can get different effects. If you take the CBD before you take the THC, it'll amplify its effects. So it's important to know because if you have Grammy using it for her first time and she does CBD and then THC, that's like a roller coaster you don't want her to be on. Versus if you do it the other way around where you have her take the THC first and then she takes the CBD after, it'll neutralize those psychoactive effects. Because let's face it, most of these people are using this as medicine, not for enjoyment. So you can still get on with your day if you take the CBD after the THC or have a better chance in that case. There's also a limitless amount of ratios and possibilities because everybody's endocannabinoid system is different. It might be different for what works for me to what works for you. So, if you take a slight amount of CBD, it might give you a burst of energy. A small amount for me might be a large amount for you. Everybody's different. It really depends on how deprived your endocannabinoid system is. The list below is actually a list of I always butcher this name, phytocannabinoids, and these are important because none of these on the screen are psychoactive, meaning that none of these will get you high. So a lot of people don't even know if these are coming into effect. As well as to the right, you have these things called terpenes, and I'm sure you guys are all looking at this like, is this slide even in English? Yes, and I assure you, most of you will probably, if not all of you, might understand this or should understand this afterwards. You're seeing these things like beta-caryophyllene, and seeing, technical difficulties. You see these words like beta-caryophyllene, and you're like, what is that? But if I told you that beta-caryophyllene was found in black pepper, a lot of you would know what to look for in that. You'd say, oh, if I taste black pepper or smell black pepper, it gives you a hint of that, as well as limonene. What does that sound like? Lemons. So anytime you taste a sort of citrusy profile, it's important to know that these have correlated effects because, for example, if you have anxiety, limonene might actually help treat anxiety. But the reality is that because everyone's endocannabinoid system is different, what might help for them might vary for you because they might need a larger dose or a smaller dose. If you give them too much, it might give them anxiety. Give them too little, it might not even get the trick done. So it is tricky. Pinene, that one would be, so if you were going on a bike ride, that would open up your lungs. Versus the one on top of it, myrcene, that one's found in a lot of things like garlic, mangoes, wheatgrass. The thing about that is most of the time if you taste that terpene, that's the one that's going to knock you out or put you on the couch. And it's important to know that because, if you're taking this medicine to help you take care of your ailment and you have a full day ahead of you and then you take it and the last thing you want to do is get work done but just chill on the couch, it's important to know. And then the last one is linalool. Linalool is found in lavender. So it's important to know that if you can differentiate these tastes, you can get an idea of what correlated effects should come with it. As well as these cannabinoids, in some cases, are found naturally throughout the world in other plants. So most of them are obviously found in cannabis and hemp, but there are certain flowers that also have these traits as well. So it's important to know that. Some of the things that they reduce with, which as you can see, and I could probably spend all day talking about them, but you can get an idea of all the things that cannabis is capable of. And again, it's hard to say that it's going to help for you because there's limitless strains and varieties and ratios you can do to help yourself. So certain benefits, so for Parkinson's, it helps calm tremors. Multiple sclerosis, it helps relax muscle spasms. Crohn's, it helps reduce inflammation. PTSD, reduce anxiety. And then cancer, it causes cancer cells to commit suicide while not able to multiply. So how is cannabis consumed and dosed? So first, obviously, you always want to start low and go slow, because the reality is like you said, you can't really start or go back, although hemp or CBD does give you that ability to kind of put the brakes on, but again, everybody's different. So methods, obviously everybody is familiar with smoking and vaping. It's the quickest, the easiest, typical way that people will do it. You have oral absorption, so you can do oils, tinctures, sprays. It's also good. Ingesting, so pills, capsules, or good old edibles, which those again start slow, break it in fourths, even eighths if that matter. And then topicals, which is always a favorite of mine because most topicals won't get you high unless you use a transdermal patch, which in some cases can, but again, that could help take your pain away for 8 hours. That's 8 hours that you can get on with your life without having that ring your life around. And then the last one that's actually not on there, but it's not a favorite amongst most people, is the backdoor method, or suppositories. While it may not be fun, it's actually very, very effective because it bypasses the liver. So you can actually utilize more of the cannabinoids versus your liver being greedy and eating most of them. Has cannabis been researched? Research actually started in the 60s in Israel. I was lucky enough to actually interview the lead scientist, Raphael Mechoulam. He tested it on mice and found that it's impossible to overdose on cannabis, no matter what. They also found that it actually has benefits too. They found that when they introduced cannabinoids to a pregnant mouse, that the baby would always suckle the mother, versus the ones that were without cannabinoids or lacking cannabinoids would refuse to suckle the baby, or the baby would refuse to suckle to the mother. And that's a big deal because we all know if a baby doesn't get milk, it doesn't live. It's kind of annoying too where we have a US patent on the cannabis plant while it's still a Schedule I narcotic. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's a campaign going on called Talk to the Hand, where everybody would take a picture and they would write that patent number 6630507, which is the US patent for it. And it was going again saying, hey, it's got medicinal value, but yet you say it doesn't and you have a patent on it and it's a Schedule I. So what's going on here? If you guys are curious, if you go to pub.med.gov and search cannabinoid, you can actually find over 21,000 different studies. As well as we actually have a few on our website at alternativevibes.com if you're curious too, which is a little bit easier to go through. The one thing that's annoying is that federal restrictions at the moment block traditional side-by-side blind clinical trials, but they're slowly happening around the world and in the US. But again, most of it is considered anecdotal at the moment, and it's not taken seriously. Like I said, Raphael Mechoulam has been doing this since 1968, and people ignore him, which it's like you have a master's in chemistry and people are looking the other way. I don't know what's going on. And now the pharmaceutical company is actually opening their eyes and they're starting to, they claim they extract cannabinoids and put it in, which two products is Epidix and Sativix. The rumor is that they take it from the cannabis plant, but then other people rumor that they synthesize their own cannabinoids. This is important to note because synthesized cannabinoids aren't found naturally in the wild like phytocannabinoids are. Phytocannabinoids, like I said, are found in hemp, cannabis, miscellaneous flowers. Endogenous cannabinoids, like the one that Raphael Mechoulam found, which is called anandamide, is found naturally in our body. You guys might be familiar with it. It's actually known as the bliss molecule. It's known for, we all know, as the runner's high. So getting that euphoria after you run a 3K or 4K or however far you can run, or another thing, eating chocolate or actually indulging with cannabis. They found that our bodies create these keys that are the same keys that cannabis produces, and it can lock the same kind of doors that our body naturally produces, which is important because it can help fix specific issues that we may not know of. Is cannabis legal? So as you guys know, there's over 28 different states right now that have a medical program going on. This is a big deal because that's half the United States. Now granted, all of them are different and unique in their own ways. Ours, obviously, as you guys know, is the strictest medical program in the country, which has its benefits because we have the best, highest products. We will never have pesticides, fungicides, microbials in our actual cannabis plant or in our concentrates. You'll never find a solvent in it. You can go to Colorado and you will definitely. You'll even find cases of people getting pesticide poisoning. Versus the one problem with our state, we are the only state that does not allow their medical patients to grow their medicine. Cannot allow this. If a patient is sick and they need their medicine, it is tell someone that, hey, you need someone to pick this up for you or doing that. The reality is you should be able to grow it like tomatoes. It's really not any different. I mean, the reality is yeah, these tomatoes might get you a little funky, but they're not going to blow your house up like everybody's saying they will when people are growing with high pressure sodiums. Again, everybody can do things wrong. I never want to say that, you could nerf the world, but Illinois' pilot program will expire by 2020 unless it's made permanent by law. And again, like I said, most of it is good, but again, we still need to fix certain things, like the cultivation for patients. Every other state allows their patients to cultivate 6 plants, and they don't have that many issues. I mean, granted, yeah, some people burn their house down, but I mean, some people are going to burn their house down regardless. Sorry, it's the case. You don't have to be high to burn your house down. My dad was a firefighter for 10 years, and believe me, there are some crazy things you can encounter. There's approximately 18,300 patients in Illinois right now. That's a lot. And we're getting 1,000 roughly every month. That's good, because that's less people that are overdosing on opiates and any sort of other pharmaceutical. Unfortunately, though, the process to get your card is a little bit complex, and I'm definitely going to be here to help you on that. You must have a qualifying condition in Illinois, which sounds simple, but in Illinois, there's only about 40 covered ailments, whereas if you go to any other state, you can pretty much get chronic pain or most of the things, whereas here, most of these are terminal. I mean, HIV, ALS, multiple sclerosis, that's some serious, it needs to be more open. I mean, we cannot restrict medicine just because some people are terminal and some are not. This is medicine for everybody. Regardless if they think they're using it recreationally, they're doing it medically, whether they know it or not, because everybody that uses cannabis uses or achieves homeostasis. So the first thing cannabis does when you smoke it or ingest it, eat it, whatever way it is, it bonds to your body to either a CB1 or CB2 receptor, and the first thing it does is it achieves that homeostasis, so your body will achieve maximum or optimum temperature, optimum hormones, so on and so forth. It's preventative maintenance. So first, for our plan, you need to get a doctor's certification for one of those, so you need to be able to prove you have that condition. And it's important that you bring the sheet in before, because they will not print it out for you. It's not that hard. You can print it out on the website and bring it in, but again, most doctors usually don't go through that time. Then you actually need to do the application part, which again, you can do online or you can shoot it and print it out. Proof of residence, which is pretty straightforward, a copy of your driver's license, and a 2x2 picture. The 2x2 picture, might I add, though, and this is where it gets kind of tricky with Illinois, they make sure that it has to be behind a white wall, and they specify that it has to be white, because when at the time I was approaching for my badge, I didn't have a single white wall in my house. I tried my door, because you figured doors work, but no, they did not. So I literally had to go to my buddy's house at 12 at night and ask if I could take a picture behind his white wall. Could not imagine how crazy I sounded at that point. And then the last part, which is actually the worst, is getting a digital fingerprint. A lot of people have no idea how to get this. Most dispensaries in Illinois, if you ask them, they will help you out. My last dispensary I worked for in Chicago, they would take you right next door to their bar and they would fingerprint you right there and then. They would help you send your application in. So just call your dispensary beforehand and see if they can help you out. Most of them are more than happy to. And I guarantee they'll love to see your smiling face. Right now, you can actually get a 1 year, a 2 year, and a 3 year. As you can tell, a 1 year is 100, a 2 year is 2, and a 3 year is 250. Now, granted, terminal illness patients will get a no charge, as well as certain veterans will get a discount. But again, you need to be able to prove and have the documentation. Caregivers. This is something you want to do when you're getting the actual medical patient as well. Just get it all done at one shot. 2 birds with 1 stone is the easiest way. Caregivers are very important because, let's face it, not everybody can pick up their medicine. Some people might need to get somebody to take it for them, and some dispensaries aren't very close. We know that right now in Illinois, you have to designate a dispensary. So some people could actually drive, I think, 30 miles, 20 miles. I forgot how many dispensaries there are, but a lot of times people actually have to lug quite the way. Not to mention in the city, when we had to deal with patients, they had to deal with parking. Parking in the city is no joke. Not to mention trying to just have your blinkers on without getting destroyed. Application fee, proof of residence, and the copy of the driver's license, and the 2x2, and the digital fingerprints. So everything's the same for the So again, the DD-214 discharge document for all the veterans, or also, in case you guys are curious, minors can also get their medical card. But theirs is a little bit more difficult. They need 2 qualifications or certifications, I should say, from 2 different doctors, as well as they need both their parents or at least one of them to be their caregiver. And then there are supposedly discounts, which I have yet to hear any luck with, but again, SSI and SSDI discounts are available supposedly, but I feel like all that is still new, so again, be patient with it. So it does typically take 30 to 45 days to process the application. Some are done quicker. If it is a terminal illness, they'll get that done way sooner than later. We had some people that got approved in little as a week, but again, some people it did take that 30 to 45 days. It really depends on how busy at the time or how many people are applying. So again, just plan out for the 30 to 45 days. The dispensary designation, like I said, that is something that is a necessity. So you need to, it takes about 24 hours to switch to a dispo. So if you know there's one close to your house, that's usually what it will auto-assign to you. But again, if you want to specify one, you can do that. There's a sheet online that you can just upload to them, as well as some dispensaries might do that for you as well too. So, patient experiences. Working in the dispo for a short amount of time, I actually got to deal with this firsthand, and it was amazing because, you know, let's face it, I worked Geek Squad for 7 years fixing people's computers, and I got yelled at every day for things I could not control. Now, I had people coming in wanting me to help them, and then seeing them the week after with a smile on their face being like, that stuff you gave me, I never slept like that. It's an amazing feeling. Or to know that they ate a full meal because you recommended something for them. It's a great feeling to know that someone can live their life normally because you destroyed a stigma on something they never thought they would have tried. If you guys are curious to know more, follow us on Facebook, as well as follow Alternative Vibes on Facebook too, because we definitely keep up with all the medical events and all that. As well as, in case you guys are curious, we do have another event coming up on May 13th on a Saturday. It's from 3 to 5 p.m., which we'll also be doing another, I believe we'll be doing another raffle as well, and I know I'll have more artwork for you, so if you liked my current print that you liked, or grabbed, I see most of you, then hopefully I'll have something a little bit better next time. But there are some opportunities, obviously, to join the Illinois Women in Cannabis, patient advocacy, charity programs, networking, employment, connects, so on and so forth. And time for some questions. All right, first thing.
I'm sorry, just real quick. Could you repeat when your next event was?
Our next event is actually on May 13th from 3 to 5 p.m. All right. Not a lot of questions, huh?
Well, I do. I was wondering, how can we get more involved in changing these laws and regulations? Who are good people to contact to coordinate that stuff?
I would say your big thing would to be first to get with your state representative. Always make sure that they are on board and they're familiar with everything that's going on, as well as getting involved with these events, because as you guys can tell, we are all on the same page when it comes to trying to save lives, as well as joining any sort of Facebook groups. Yep.
I heard that if you want to get your medical cannabis card, you have to give up your FOID card.
That is incorrect, and I'm glad you asked that. So the question is that if you get a medical cannabis card, you have to give up your FOID card or your concealed carry license. That is incorrect, although once you do get your medical card, it is going to be difficult to get any sort of future firearm. So you're able to keep your existing, but getting anything future, that I can't speak for, unfortunately. I would definitely ask for legal assistance on that, but again, your pre-existing stuff should be all fine. Yes?
Can I answer her first question? So So the Illinois Normal is always looking for more people to help out with our cause. And if you follow the Facebook group, there's always posting state representatives' phone numbers to call them. And then we do like lobby days and different things like that. So we should have meetings coming up starting again in the city. I don't know if you can make it down there, but we should have things starting up with that. So Illinois Normal.
N-O-R-M-L.
Yeah. Make sure you do the Illinois Normal chapter, though, because I believe they have a national chapter and then an Illinois chapter, too. So,
So I had a question too, like when I first got my card, there was some police officers there at the dispensary in Addison,
mhm.
and hanging out trying to get in, and they said, no, you can't get in because you don't have a cannabis card. And I said, hey, can you look up my card and see what comes up on your screen in the car? And they pull up my name, and on there it said medical marijuana patient in red. I think that's a violation of constitutional rights. Is that still happening? Do we know? Yeah?
I
It'll
feel
always
like,
come up.
like,
It'll
But
always
then
come
does
up.
that
You
prompt
mentioned
them
the
to
point
want to look in your
No,
computer
it's like-
stuff, or what?
It all
yeah,
depends
they
on-
might be giving us a little bit of maybe freedom or whatever to be able to apply and be able to obtain a medical
Yeah.
cannabis card, but at the same time, I feel like they're still kind of criminalizing us.
Yeah,
In a
they,
sense.
and that is the thing, is we are still belittled for using our medicine, which is unfortunate. But for the time being, they are still, like you said, giving us a leeway for things. I know in the city that they can pull up that you're a medical user by pulling up your license plate. I haven't heard any issues from my personal medical patients, but again, I can't speak for everyone, and I know that each area varies. I know Chicago police has their hands filled when it comes to things, and they're not looking for harmless stoners.
Yeah, they
So
really
what
don't
about the
care.
airport at O'Hare? Is that difficult for people?
The airport at O'Hare, I haven't heard any negatives. I know that I've heard some people say they've actually had luck bringing their medicine with them, just having it on their carry-on. And I'm not saying like flour, but they have vape pens and their sleep or salves or anything. And then again, I haven't personally, but
What does a person have to do to start getting involved in maybe cultivating or starting their own little business?
in Illinois, I would say, unfortunately, move to another state. Yeah. In Illinois, it really depends on how much money you have, because the amount the licenses cost. Some of them, I know, like with everything going forward, I think it's over $1 million that you need when it comes to licensing, fees, and legal and stuff, so.
Really, because I know somebody in Florida that has their own edibles business.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't doubt, and that's what I want to see here in Illinois, is to have everybody be able to legally have safe access and to be able to grow this without the threat of, hey, am I going to have to pay millions of dollars for this one license that if I get declined for, they just take my money?
But I think 5 or less is a misdemeanor.
Yeah, 5 or less is a misdemeanor.
Really, in this position, you could be very discreet and take that chance if you wanted to, I suppose, but is it 10 now?
10 grams or less.
No, we're talking about plants. So she's talking about if you were to get caught with cultivating up to 5 plants, it would be considered, I believe, a misdemeanor, not a felony. Whereas if it's 6 plants and over, it would be considered a felony. But again, what they would consider a plant is difficult, because I don't know if you've seen how some of these people cultivate. Some of them are Christmas trees the size of this room. How do you say that's one plant? Someone can break off a branch and be like, this is a plant right here.
It has to have roots. It has to be a sustainable entity. If it's a clipping on the floor, it's not a plant, because that can't be sustainable.
Oh, it's good to know.
That's not count. You can have a Christmas tree and that's one plant. You can have a seedling and that's one plant. It's got a root system.
So,
5 or less. So, if you've got a big property, I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it because the more people that say no to
Abs-
Dan's law and yes to life will be empowered.
Yeah, but then you'll lose your med card and you'll never.
Okay, I know, but
So you
back
can take that
before to
chance.
get this ball rolling, for any of us to have a personal testimony,
That's
what
not the way to
people
go about
did.
it.
I know,
I promise.
no, I know, but I'm just saying.
yeah. At the end of the day, if you were to ask me, would I prefer to see my friend alive or illegally healed or, in the ground, I think I would rather see them illegally healed. But again, if they involve me in that, I can't say I would be involved. I mean, I would probably just look the other way and not be involved. Because, again, as much as I went all the way to Washington State so I could grow mine, as well as look at it under a microscope. So believe me, I am very passionate about it. And living here in this state, there's nothing that makes me drive me crazier than wanting to grow a harmless plant, especially to make it the size of a Christmas tree. But yeah, thanks.
What's the likelihood of expanding the medical condition list?
It's probable, and that's why I would want people to work with the Illinois Normal chapters, because they're the ones that are actually helping change and get more qualifying ailments in there. Again, the biggest thing you can do is talk to your state representative, because the more times or bills that get introduced, and I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but there is a legalization bill. I think there's 2 of them that are introduced for Illinois. Now, granted, they might take some time to actually come into effect, but still the fact that they're introduced in Illinois is a big deal.
But the thing, the better news about that is if they are in play, then prosecutions go down. And that's, so like even the federal government, they've cut down their budget for prosecuting cannabis-related crimes by 90%. They've redirected their efforts into opiates and other things. So when it's on the plate, it looks like it's got a fair chance, law enforcement tends to back off.
That's good.
That's been
Yeah.
the trend across the country.
Although the one thing I am kind of worried about, because I have gone to legal states, is how they're treating driving impairment. Some states will get you for a 0 tolerance, and for some people, literally, they could smoke a week and you could drug test them 2 weeks later and they'll still pull up 0.08 nanograms of THC in their blood or more. And that's because, let's face it, someone smokes a week ago, they're not intoxicated. Just because it's in their blood does not mean they're intoxicated.
Exactly. So what happens if you have a medical card and your work random drug tests you? How does that work? Even though you have it in your system,
Yeah.
but you're not.
Unfortunately, right now you are still at the discretion of your employer. So if you work in a Fortune 500 company and their policy is that you can't be under the influence, then unfortunately they would
I'm
have.
not saying you're under the influence, I'm saying maybe you still have the effects in your body from last month.
Oh, I mean, if they were doing the effects, then they could probably just terminate you for poor performance. But if they were just terminating you from like a piss test, then again, that would be a little bit more difficult, because if you have a medical card, they're still terminating you for something you have legal access to, but because it's federally illegal, they still have legality to do it.
But I have heard, I read an article where there is a new test coming out that they will be able to test you to see if you are on it at the time.
Yeah,
Technology is there, they're just, they want to.
I have actually read this article.
was that the Drug-A-Whizzer one, I think? Okay, because I know that they're doing these ones with these tongue strips, as well as they're doing this little gadget called a Drug-A-Whizzer, and both of them vary, but again, both of them will show THC in the blood, but I don't know about, like you said, it being active at the time. So, and then I saw another hand go up. Was it? Oh. Yep.
Are you referred to the
Endocannabinoid
endocannabinoid system?
system, yes.
Is that the endocrine system? Is that what you're, I'm not
Well, the endocannabinoid system is actually part of our central and peripheral nervous system. So essentially the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, the cerebellum, all of those parts are part of our endocannabinoid system. We have certain receptors present throughout our body. Most of the peripheral ones are CB2 receptors, which mean that those are the ones that don't typically come with psychoactive effects. So when you hear about somebody putting a lotion on their back and it helps their back out, it's because it's bonding to their CB2 receptors. Versus if someone's ingesting it, whether it's through a brownie or smoking or an oil, that's going to their CB1 receptors. And for the most part, that's the psychoactive part, which typically will give the euphoria or the high experience. And looks like that's it for questions.